Final Fights. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who just got done with a vigorous run on the beach. It's Chris Kelly.
Hey, everybody.
Yep, so Chris and I went out for our morning jog on the beach, and he just started sprinting, then I started sprinting, and since neither of us are Apollo or Rocky, Chris rolled his ankle on a seashell, and then I stepped on a jellyfish, and then I stepped on a shell, and then we only ran about, 30 feet combined, would you say?
Well, it depends on if you're talking about it whenever you threw the jellyfish at me.
Yeah.
I then had to backtrack another 10 feet, and then
we had to go to the hospital.
And then that was an extra 70 feet.
That thing got right on your back and just latched itself to you.
It's the damnedest things. They move so sluggishly whenever they're on land until they see a human, and then they're just on you like a pack of wolves on a three-legged cat.
It took over your body. It basically used you as a marionette, and you were just running around the beach being controlled.
I'm actually a jellyfish right now. I'm importing a bunch of seawater, so in about 30 minutes, I'm going to have to cut this short.
You're in your bathtub right now recording this. You're getting the guys from that TV show Tank just to build a full tank in your place. Your neighbors will hate it.
The neighbors hate it, but, I pay my HOA fees just like everybody else.
So I'm going to call you Chris Jellyfish Kelly.
Rolls right off the tongue.
So the reason... Man, it's so fluid. The reason that we're discussing this is so you and I have already talked about Rocky 1 and 2 on the Final Fights podcast. And so naturally you came back for 3. And what I'm talking about is, so Rocky fights Clubber Lang in their first fight. In the fight, there's 71 total punches thrown. Rocky loses. He gets knocked out. He loses his belt. His trainer dies. And so he starts training with Apollo for a rematch with Clubber Lang. And they run on the beach together. And they have a very long shot of Sylvester Stallone's thighs when he's running. I don't know if you noticed this.
I did. Yeah, there's some really intricate shots of very sweaty thighs in that scene.
You know what's kind of interesting is, so we talked about the first fight, and because of the budget in the first Rocky, you talked about how they brought in extras from a nursing home, and they had nurses, and they had a few angles that they could achieve. And then the second one looks more like a traditional boxing match. It looks like it could potentially be on HBO, more cuts, more flair. But this third one, man, I mean, just the amount of editing, they like the slow motion in this one, the different kind of camera angles, and just the amount of editing. This is a much more thematic kind of edited piece, and I don't know if you feel that way.
No, I 100% feel that way. You can tell that there's a massive difference between Rocky and Rocky 3. I read that Sylvester Stallone really wanted to change the way that Rocky 3 looked because he wanted to show how celebrityism had changed him changed Stallone, and he felt that it would be best to reflect that in Rocky as well, because a lot of the Rocky movies have a lot of biographical scenes and language that from Stallone's life, so he felt that it would be best reflected in Rocky. So they changed the way it looked. They changed a lot of the camera movements. They changed everything about it.
And I gotta tell you, I was watching this first round that they get to, because this is a short fight. This is 3 rounds. And I was watching the first round, and Rocky opens up. He goes 32-0. He lands 32 punches, and Clubber lands nothing. And I remember watching it, Chris, because we've talked about how Apollo opened up with a lot of jabs and a lot of punches in the other two, but this fight takes it to a complete other level of momentum. You have Rocky landing 32 punches, and he's kind of crab walk. It's I don't know if you noticed this on this one, but did you feel like this one felt much more choreographed and rehearsed, but you saw it rather than the first? The first two, maybe it's a testament to Carl Weathers and Sylvester Stallone. But in this one, Rocky crab steps 2 steps, throws a right, crab steps, throws a right, crab steps, throws a right, and essentially goes around the ring doing that. And it's it's a good fight scene, and I 100% bought into Mr. T, Clubber Lang's physicality. When he hits, I felt it. And the score later on, when it's like dun dun, when the score builds later on, and at the end when Rocky knocks out Clubber, it sounds like a plane takes off in the sound effect. It really does.
No, it reminded me a lot of in Raging Bull whenever they used gunshots for whenever Jake LaMotta would hit.
Yeah.
It literally sounds like a machine or almost like an animal every time that Clubber Lang hits him, and you really feel it, especially if you have a nice sound system in your house.
And I mean, I do love the obviously he couldn't do, so in the first one he went the full like 15 rounds. In the second one they almost go to 15 rounds. So in this one you got to make it different. So I like the 3-round aspect of this. I like that the 3 rounds play out in live time, not like the first 2, then skip through everything to 15. But I guess my problem with this fight is it just felt every fight's choreographed, but I kind of saw the choreography in this one. Does that make sense? Am I going crazy here? Did you notice that with this fight?
Yeah, you do notice a little bit that it is choreographed. It doesn't have the same rawness, and it doesn't have the same feel as the first 2 fights, where I feel that maybe Rocky is coming into his own as a boxer, so is becoming his craft now. So he would look a little bit more different while he was throwing, as opposed to in the first 2 films. That also could be reflected upon it, but also, you know, he's going up against Mr. T, James Clubber Lang, and he's the reflection of what Rocky was before he had got the belt.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see why Clubber Lang's boxing would be a little bit different than Rocky's would be. And then after Clubber Lang gets the belt, he then becomes a little bit more relaxed, I guess you'd say. To me, he doesn't seem as aggressive, because he already has the championship belt. So, but you do notice that the fighting techniques, it does look more of like a dance. It's not as raw or as brutal as the first 2 fights, but the sound effects are 10,000 times.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I mean, I guess I just love that. So in the first round, he lands 49 of his 51 jabs. So CompuBox, they did a record of this. And I love that. So Vladimir and Vitaly Klitschko, who I love, they're heavyweight boxers, they actually are number 2 with 38 landed in a round. So that was the record at the time. Later on, obviously, but 38 is the record, and Rocky landed 49. And in this first round, it's for a heavyweight fight, it's bonkers. But I mean, once again, it's Rocky, and he's made out of iron, he's made out of steel. And you know what's interesting is, while watching the training montage for this film with him and Apollo, it really sells that he could throw 49 punches or land 49 jabs in one round. So, even though this isn't obviously believable, it never was meant to be, but you can kind of believe that Rocky could do this. Because he got down to 3-point-something% body fat in this. So you think he could punch all day. So you believe it. It's exaggerated, but it's believable, which I like about this franchise.
Yeah, and also to go with Clubber Lang, I mean, he himself looks like he is a machine. So he looks like there is nothing that is going to stop him. I mean, he says multiple times, I can't be beat, I won't be beat.
Yeah.
And I love the dialogue that we use to describe Clubber Lang to build up to him. You know, throughout the whole Rocky franchise, it's always that Rocky can't win, he won't win, and he always overcomes, but he's never up against somebody who says that I'm going to beat you.
Yeah.
You don't hear that up until this point. And, you know, Mick tells him, you know, he's going to knock you in tomorrow. He says, the reason why that he thinks that he's going to lose is because you haven't been hungry since you won that belt. And he confesses to him that all the boxing matches that Rocky has been having up to this point have all been fixed. He's like, they're great fighters, but they never had a chance.
Mm-hmm. Tomato cans. But they're better than tomato cans, but kind of tomato cans, I guess.
I love what Apollo Creed said before the first boxing match. He says, I feel that the strength would have go to the challenger, while experience in the world's hardest head would have to go to Rocky Balboa. Yeah. I know about that.
I really think the NFL should take his head and study it for future helmets. But you know what else I dig though is I was watching this and I kind of wrote some notes, and in this you have all the wide shots, then you have the different angles, then they brought in the announcers who play much more of a prevalent part in this, and the Steadicam work was different in this as well. Then I really dug the lower angles that they were shooting from the corners, and just the editing I thought was good. And the most powerful thing about the one thing I liked most about this fight was there's a scene where Clubber picks up Rocky and throws him into the corner. And when he did it, they show it in slow motion, but it really sells how strong this guy is. And I really sort of dug that about it. I thought slow motion was used not, some movies just use slow motion, like, hey, that looks cool, I'm going to use it. I felt like the slow motion in this was played wonderfully with the throw. And also I liked whenever Rocky got knocked down in round, 2, I liked that they played a Jaws type score. Like he was underwater. So like you feel like when he's on the ground, it really seems like he's underwater trying to get his feet back. So that's another credit to the score. And I dug that about it a lot.
Yeah, it's a fantastic score. It really puts you in almost like a scary mood too, and it really shows that Rocky is very scared for himself. There's that point where he doesn't think that he can actually do this.
Mm-hmm. And I love though that he does, but you know what? I guess the narrative that they always play on this. Did you kind of believe that Clubber Lang punches himself out? Because in the third round, he's just punching air. He's missing a lot. But his trainer is yelling at him, not 100%, not 100%. And it's basically the mistake Apollo made in the second one. But I felt like the air was getting hurt when he was punching it, Clubber Lang. Because Mr. T, man, like, just his footwork and how strong he got. I mean, he was firing those jabs off beautifully. But yeah, I guess I believe that he tired himself out. I kind of like the narrative about it. And I liked that Rocky was taunting in this one. You know, your mother, like, wait, my mother hits harder than that. Like he's rubbing Mr. T's head. Like he got into that. Like, it's a cool, and do you think that's Rocky final fight strengths? And sorry, I'm talking a lot, but do you think their final fights, the strengths come from the narrative? Like that, they build it around a very distinctive narrative. And I think that's why you like them a lot.
There's a lot of head rubbing and nose bopping, as we know from the other two films, and all these. And also, Rocky gets thrown in the corner of literally every one of the movies.
He gets DJ Jazzy Jeff in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
At the end of the second round, Apollo tells him, "Man, this man is going to beat your head off." And Rocky replies, "Hey, I know what I'm doing." Yeah. And he did. He tired him out so that he could then pop him in the chin and have Clubber Lang go down.
And do you think that's pretty interesting so Apollo goes out of his way to train him. And at the end, Apollo's like, it doesn't take a man to stand there and get his head beat in. But don't you think Rocky would have talked to him? Like, listen, I'm going to try to wear this guy down. Like, you have Apollo screaming. Yeah. Right? Like, would Apollo have caught on to that? Or do you think that's just a narrative decision to kind of add more drama to the scene?
Oh, definitely a narrative decision to add a little bit more to it. Because if he had been like, yo, listen, dude, hey, you know how hard my head is, all right? Take it down a notch. It's like, we're going to talk about this later on, all right? I'm just pump the brakes. All right, Apollo? Sheesh.
Get the eye of the tiger. They said get the eye of the tiger in this one. Oh, I love it. And he's just a man.
Well, before their first match, Clubber Lang, man, he's on fire the entire time. Oh. I don't know if you caught this, but before they even fight for the first time, whenever Clubber is taunting Rocky in between, in the hallway, he's like, "I'll beat you right now." He takes one of the police officers and throws him over the banister to get to Rocky. He is no joke. Mr. T,
that extra got destroyed.
Mr. T was no slouch. I mean, he has a whole history in football and martial arts before he even started working in movies. He was voted the second most, was the meanest bouncer in America at the time. And he was also, in this interview shortly after making this movie for Playboy, he said, "I'm the best bodyguard because I'll take a bullet, I'll take a stab wound, I'll take a hit upside the head. I'm a kamikaze pilot. The president got shot because his men relaxed," referring to whenever Reagan got shot. So
wow.
He is an intimidating man. And also, just some little behind the scenes facts. Obviously Mr. T was very proud of this movie because it showcased him really well. And he's a very proud and outspoken mama's boy. He then brought his mother to the premiere of this movie. His mom, after seeing the scene where Clubber Lang is talking to Adrian, saying, "Hey woman, why don't you go to my apartment tonight? I'll show you what a man's like." Mr. T's mother said, "I did not raise you to talk to a woman like that," and she got up and left.
Yeah, I love that fact. I love that.
But yeah, this end fight scene, this final fight is definitely the most sweatiest, greasiest fight in Rocky history up to this point.
I mean, Mr. T, he's baby oiled in this one. What can I tell you?
Oh my God! But before The Rock, we had Mr. T.
That's right.
Keeping baby oil in business since
whenever this movie was made, since '82.
Well, after the fight, Adrian says, "Are you all right?" Rocky says, "Yeah, never better."